So apologies for the delay, as my colleague has said. I will start this webinar. So good morning, welcome to the CIEEM webinar on an introduction of the NBN Atlas as a replacement for the Gateway. And this will be presented by Joe Judge from the National Biodiversity Network. A recording of this presentation and the Q&A session will be made available on our website and the YouTube channel in the week commencing the 15th of May. Whilst we are waiting for anybody else to sign in, I'm just going to go through a few notices with you. Summer Conference, Integrated Management of the Marine Environment, is on the 4th of July at the Grand Harbour Hotel in Southampton. We're very pleased to have Professor Stuart Rogers, the Chief Scientist at CIEEM, as our keynote speaker, who will be talking about the need for transformation in the way that marine management is undertaken. We also have Paul Goriot from the Brexit Marine and Fisheries Working Group, who will be talking about developing CIEEM's position on fisheries and the marine policy post-Brexit. You can see a full lineup of the speakers on our website. Tickets are now available. All you need to do is log on to our webpage and follow the register link. We are offering a range of training events this summer, including Otter Survey Impacts and Mitigation, which takes place on the 1st of June in Dunblane, and Water Vole Ecology and Surveys in Ilkeston in late June. We also have Preliminary Ecological Appraisal and Applied Approach in Cooksbridge, East Sussex on the 14th of June. A Beginner's Guide to the National Vegetation Classification in Skipton on the 27th of July, and Calculating and Using Biodiversity Units in London on the 1st of November. So if you want to find out more about these training events, go to www.cieem.net and you can have a look through all training events that are available. If you want to ask a question during this webinar, if you just click on the Q&A button up in the top right-hand corner, and then you can write in the box your question and press send. And at the end of Joe's presentation, we will then do some Q&A sessions and answer as many questions as we can possibly get through. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Joe Judge, who will provide you with an introduction to navigating the new NBN Atlas, including searching, mapping functionality, licenses and permissions, and downloading data. If you would like to ask a question, as mentioned a minute ago, you can click on the Q&A icon and we will answer these questions at the end of the presentation. Before we actually go into the presentation, I'm just going to do a poll with you all. We have the first poll, which should be in front of you, is how often did you use the NBN Gateway? If you could click on one of the buttons, and I will give you a minute to do that. I'm still waiting for a few people to vote. Okay, I think that might be everybody. We'll have a look at the results. Okay, so frequently 31% of you, occasionally 61% of you, and never 10% of you. So here are the results for you to see. Okay, we just have one other. Have you used the new NBN Atlas? If you could vote on this, you have about a minute to do this. Okay, we've got almost everybody has voted. Okay, so I'm going to end the voting now. And the results are 6% have frequently used it, 31% occasionally, and 64% have never used it. So now I am going to hand over to Joe. It will take a couple of seconds for us to just share our screens because we need to swap our screens over. So if you can bear with us for a minute. Okay, Joe, you're able to share your screen now. Okay, so it's over to Joe.
Okay. Hi, everybody. As Karen said, I'm just going to give you a very quick introduction to the new NBN Atlas, which is our replacement for the NBN Gateway. Just to start off with why we've had to make the decision to change from the Gateway. The original Gateway was brought into being in about 2000, and it had been updated a few times over the past few years. And a review of people that used the Gateway was published in 2015, and it was becoming apparent that the Gateway was becoming a bit out of date and not really fit for purpose anymore. And so we had 3 options of how to deal with this, in that we could either spend money updating the Gateway, we could produce a whole new system ourselves, or we could look around to see what was available from other countries that were using biological information infrastructures. And so we decided that the best thing for us to do was actually to adopt the Atlas of Living in Australia infrastructure. And there are many reasons that we decided to do this. It was open source, so the Australian government actually invested about £35 million worth of money into the development of the Atlas of Living Australia, and very kindly then made it all open source so that others could use it. It's much more powerful than the Gateway was. It has, hopefully, I hope you'll agree, a much more friendly user interface. It's more intuitive to use, and it should be suitable for a range of users. The Gateway was very good if you knew what you were doing, but it was a bit daunting if you'd not used it before. So we have adopted the Atlas of Living Australia platform, and we're currently in the process of adapting and refining it to our needs in the UK. So this is what the NBN Atlas looks like at the moment. It's as you can see, it's already hopefully looking a bit more pleasant. It went live on the 1st of April. This is really just the first implementation, first phase of the implementation of the Atlas. And at this stage, it is just to provide similar functionality to what was on the Gateway. But one of the reasons that we adopted the Atlas infrastructure was because it's got great potential for further development. And there's a lot more that we can and hope to do with this system in the future. But I'll come back to all of this in a bit as we go through the Atlas. So there are a couple of big differences to the Gateway. The first is probably to do with open data and shared data. So on the Gateway, there used to be the possibility of data providers would provide us with capture resolution data, and then it would be blurred for public resolution through the Gateway. And people could request access to their capture resolution data via the Gateway. This won't be possible on the Atlas. There are no access controls on it, so the data that's on the Atlas that everybody can see is the only data that we hold. And if you want to get enhanced access to data, you'd have to contact the data provider directly to see if they have a higher capture resolution data and whether they are willing to let you have access to that. The one exception to this is for sensitive species. So the Gateway didn't show sensitive species records at all. We will be showing them on the atlas, but they will be blurred to a resolution as defined by a country-specific sensitive species list. So the sensitive species list will be different in Scotland to England to Wales and so on. Through this, although we don't have the functionality at the moment, you will be able to access the sensitive species data directly through the atlas once the mechanism is in place, as long as you've got permission from the data providers. So essentially the atlas is what you see is what you get. There's nothing else that you can get through the atlas, and it is going to be the case that, especially in this transition period, not all of the data that's available is shown on the atlas, and so it is important to ensure you have the correct data and the appropriate resolution for any work that you're doing, and not completely rely on the atlas as yet. We are hoping that over the next couple of years we will be able to move to a much more open sharing of data through the NBN atlas, and the resolution will continue to get better and better. So with the sensitive species, as I said, there's a sensitive species list, and you'll be able to see this on the NBN atlas as well, and that we haven't got a Northern Ireland one at the moment because they haven't given it to us yet, but at the moment the sensitive species lists have been set by the country agencies in each country, but we are going to be having a workshop to bring some experts into that as well to determine what should and shouldn't go on the sensitive species list, but there's more information on the atlas if you need it. So the other thing that's quite different on the atlas is the use of Creative Commons licenses. So Creative Commons licenses are a global way of helping the legal sharing of knowledge, and there's much more information about the Creative Commons on their website. They have a number of different Creative Commons licenses that all have different conditions on them, but the three that are being used on the NBN Atlas, which are also the three that are being used on GBIF, are the CC0, CC BY, and CC BY NC. So to go through each of these ones in a very little bit of detail, I'm not going to dwell on these for too long, but the CC0 is that there are no rights reserved. You can basically use the data that's got a CC0 license for whatever purpose you want to. For the CC BY, which is the next one we use, which is with attribution, this allows you to share and copy the data. You can adapt it, you can build on it, but you must also give credit to the data provider and provide a link to the license and say if you've made any changes. And all of the data sets should have one of these little symbols beside them to show quite clearly what license the data is under. And then the third one that we're going to be using is the CC BY NC. And data under this license can be used under the same conditions as a CC BY, except they can't be used for commercial purposes. Defining commercial purposes has been a tricky thing to do. The Creative Commons just define it as one primarily intended for or directed towards commercial advantage or monetary compensation, which obviously leaves it open to interpretation quite a bit. We at the NBN have provided some guidance on the definition of what we consider might be non-commercial or commercial use, which essentially breaks down to things like non-commercial being personal use, use for education, research and reporting for statutory purposes, but it will be a little bit on a case-by-case basis. So hopefully what these licenses will do will enable you to be able to see very clearly and very easily what data can be used under what conditions. We do also have two other licenses that are going to be available on the Atlas that aren't available on GBIF. One of these is the Open Government License, which is primarily used by the government agencies. It's very similar to the CC BY, so you can use it as long as you make the correct attributions and point to the license when it's used. And there's also a restricted reuse license, which only relates to sensitive species data. And that will, the restricted reuse license will be issued by the data providers. It's not a general license that will be given out over the Atlas, and it will detail what in particular you can do with any sensitive species data that you are given access to. And one of the benefits of the atlas is that you'll be able to see very clearly what data has what license. So you'll be able to look at things on a map and have a look at what different licenses it has. So it should be able to help you to filter out anything that you can and can't use. And I'll show you how to do these maps in a moment. So going on to the NBN Atlas itself, if this is the homepage, as you saw before, we've now gone live onto the Atlas, so hopefully my connections will work fine. So this is the homepage. It has a few banners across the top saying what the NBN Atlas is for, and then as you scroll down, there's more information. There's some featured species, information about data partners, information about the amount of data that we've got available on there. So at the moment we've got over 215 million species records on the Atlas, which is over double the amount of publicly available data that was on the gateway. And as I said, this is the first phase, so we're still looking for any feedback as to how the Atlas is working. And then these are just the main funders for the Atlas. So there are quite a few ways that you can search within the Atlas. The first one being from this homepage. There are two searches. There's a search button in the top left there, and one in the center of the screen. If you search from these two boxes, it will return all matches and not just species information. The Atlas is a much more powerful tool than the Gateway was, and we do include a lot more information on localities, on things like species lists, on also we will have habitat data, environmental data, all of that sort of thing. So any search that you might make through here could return anything that is in the Atlas. So if we do a quick search from here for water vole, as you can see from this search, it does actually show up as the first thing a locality rather than the species itself. So if you do search through there and you want to change what you've looked for, there are ways to refine the results on the left, so that you could, if you just wanted species, you could click on that, and then the species information would come up. It also doesn't just do an exact match, it will bring up other things that have similar names in the title as well. If you only want to get species data, then if you click on the species tab and search in there, it says search for taxa, but you can use any sort of common name, scientific name, synonyms, anything like that can be used in the search. And when you do it that way, the vole is the first thing that comes up. So if we click on the vole, that will take you through to the species page. And as you can see on the species page, you will get an overview which has some photos. I'm not quite sure why that's the top one rather than that. So you get some photos so you can see what the species itself looks like. There's more data down here. We're still populating some of these, so we will be having species descriptions, so on. It tells you how many data sets there are, and various other information like what wildlife legislation might apply and that sort of thing. From this page, you can also go through to the gallery to see more photos, look at the names, so the accepted names, the common names, any sort of synonyms they may have. What the classification is, you can go straight from there through to charts of the occurrence records, so the species records, and these will show you by vice county, so location, data partners. This has obviously got a bit squashed up, I apologise for that, data set, and then you can also look at temporarily, so by decade or by month. And if you click on any one of those chart bars, it will take you through to the data that's available for that particular thing. So this one is only showing data in the decade, showing records between 2000 and 2009. If we go back to the overview page, so you've also then got any references to literature that we've been provided with. We don't populate this ourselves. We use the data providers and species experts to provide us any information that we may want to go on there. There's also room for gene sequencing and then for the actual data sets themselves. And as you can see straight from here, you can see the license that the data set is under and the number of records that are in each of those ones. So if we go back to the species page and look in View Map, this will take us through to an interactive map of that species. And the default view is that it will show the OS grid squares for across the country for where there are locations of those records. And if you zoom in, while it's under variable grids, it will then change to 10 kilometers, 2 kilometer, 1 kilometer, whatever is actually available on there. If I just give it a second, hopefully it will catch up with me to show those. Which isn't working very well. What should happen is that you'll get the different coloured boxes within there to show the 1 kilometre squares and so on. It will also hopefully show you responsive grids, which will change depending on your how far in or out you're zoomed. Sorry about this, it's just taking a little while to warm up. So I just try and refresh the page and see if that helps with the display. I'm not going to go and try and show the different size of grids again. You'll have to take my word for it on this, but obviously you can go and play with it yourself. Another thing that you can do on the map is to customize what you show on there. So if you click on the Customize Filters button on the top left, it will give you the default things that are displayed or can be displayed, which are scientific name, license, data provider, and so on. You can check or uncheck any of those to add them into what will be displayed on the map. And when you make any changes, if you just press update, the simplest way to see any of this is actually to display it as points rather than grids. So if you go into the color by drop down box at the top of the map, you will then be able to change it so it displays different things like the license. So the points should come up there in different colors to show which license each data record has. So there we go, eventually, and there's quite a lot of records for the Walter Vole going over decades, so there's a lot of dots on there, but you can then just select from here. So if you want to make sure that you're not using any that have got a non-commercial license, you can then just uncheck the box and it will only show you the ones that have got the other 3 licenses. Another thing you can do straight from the map quite easily is you can define an area by one of these polygons, rectangle or circle. So if you just clicked on one of those and then made your square within the map, it will show you how many records that there are in that area, and then you can just look at the records that are there rather than looking at all 46,000. So you've got 208 in that particular area, and then it will show you on the map a close-up of the area that you've clicked on or selected for there. Another thing you can do, so if you want to not only can you customize the filters to show which licenses are available and then color them by grids there, but you can also on here, you can choose different ones that you might want. So at the bottom of any of these little categories is choose more box, and this is one looking at the blurred the resolution, sorry, of the records. And so if you only want to look at ones that are 100 meters or greater in resolution, then you just tick on that, include that in your selection, and then hopefully this will go through and only show you the records within that area that have that 100-meter resolution. So it should be a lot quicker to be able to find what you need or to find out what's there. And then if you didn't want to get rid of that, then you just simply click your filters here, click the X, and that will remove any of those filters and take you back to whatever you were on before. One of the other ways that we can search within the NBN Atlas is by location. So if you go into the locations tab at the top there, this enables you to search by polygon. So you can either draw a polygon on a map, or you can also import GIS shapefiles or any other spatial reference that most of them are supported by the Atlas, and you can just import that straight into the Atlas, and then you'll only look at the information that's within your area. And you can also use address, postcode, or location searching. Explore your area. As I say, it can be address, it can be a street name, it can be a town or a city, or it can be a postcode or a grid reference. Depending on whether you have your location set on your computer or not, will be where it initially shows up. So this one's showing for Cheltenham, and it will display by default a 5-kilometer radius around your point, but you can change that to 1 or 10. And then if you're not in quite the right area, you can simply just pick up the marker and drag that, and it will take the radius over to where you've put it on. And then the dots are the records, and the key at the bottom shows you how many records there are at each location, and obviously going from yellow to red depending on how many records are actually available. You can also change this so you've got a map base, a road map base rather than a satellite map base, and then you can click on these points as well to get information to tell you, and it will tell you how many records there are in that particular area. On the left-hand side here, you've got all of the species that are found in that radius. It's split out into groupings, and then you have all of the species, scientific names, and common names along there, and how many records there are available for each of those. And you can then filter that quite simply by choosing the group you want to look at. You just click on the far left there for mammals, which seems to be taking, there we go, it's finally caught up. And then so that will show you just the locations of all the mammals in the area. And then if you want to look at a particular species, for example hedgehog, again it will change, so it will only show the locations of hedgehog records, and you can go from there straight back to the species profile, where you can get more information about it, or you can go to look at the individual records in that area itself. If you wanted to, you'd also be able to view all of the records within your 5-kilometer radius just by clicking on the view all records there, and anywhere that you can see a downloads button, you can download the information straight from there. So if you'd change that so that you only had mammals on there, for example, you'd only had the hedgehogs, it will only download the records you've selected, so you don't have to go through and sort them out again. So just waiting for this to catch up again, sorry about that. So if I show the downloads, if possible. So in order to download, you have to log in. You can either we would recommend you set up you register with an account for the Atlas, because that will enable you to do things like put up alerts or annotate records or that sort of thing. But you can also log in via Google or Facebook if you wish. But we'd obviously advise for you to register for an Atlas account if possible. When you go to download, you have to put in your sorry, obviously confused it a little bit there. So if we go back to this, I'll see if I can show you the downloads now. Anyway, if you go to download, it will show you will have to fill in your email address and give a reason for why you are downloading the data, which are things like if they're for education, for research, personal use, that sort of thing. And then it will run it off and produce a CSV file for you. Depending on the size of the data sets, obviously depends how long it will take, but it shouldn't take too long in most cases. So another way that you can search within the Atlas is through looking for data partners or data sets. So everybody that provides us with data is an NBN data partner, and we have information about all of those data partners within the Atlas. So you can either pick on them by the map or by looking at the list. So if we pick, for example, butterfly conversation, this will take you through to their data partner page. Now, at the moment, this is a very simple page, just gives a brief description of butterfly conservation, what they do, who they are, so on, and what data sets they have on the Atlas, and contact details for them. So you can just click straight through to their website if you want to. But over time, we're hoping this will be much more customizable by the data partners themselves, and they'll be able to give much more information on here about the data sets they hold, about whether they have higher resolution data available, what sort of services they provide, all of that sort of thing. And this data partner page also shows the usage statistics for those resources that they have on the Atlas, and these here are essentially, these are the reasons that would come up on the download for you to choose which one of those for why you're downloading data from the Atlas. You can also look for a specific data set. So you can do this by search, or you can just click so you can do this by search. You can either search in there if you know the name that you want, or if you want a particular data partner data set or anything like that, and then for each of them, if you click on them, they will take you through to the metadata, and I've actually just picked on the wrong one. So if we try and find one that's got some records in it, so if we go through to this one, for example, then it should give you a lot of information about the data set itself. So description, where it covers, why it was done, why the surveys were done. It also gives an indication of the data quality of the data set, and this is information that's given to us by the data providers. So we rely on the data providers to provide information about whether these records are verified or what confidence they have in the records themselves, how it was collected, and then any citation. So if it's a CC BY, so it should have in here how they would like you to cite that data set, but they've obviously not given us that information at the moment. And then the license that it's on, and what time period it covers. And then from here you can also view the records, download usage statistics, or you can also set up an alert so that if any new records are added to this data set, then you will get an email through to tell you that there's new records on there, or if anyone annotates any of the records, you'd be able to check that out from there as well. So those are the basic things that are available on the Atlas that should cover most of what you could do through the gateway. But the Atlas is also going to have much more powerful tools for analyses, and also, as I say, we're going to be adding habitat data, spatial layers, environmental data, and so on. We've not got a huge amount of those on the Atlas yet, but they are coming. If you want to have a look at the sort of things that we might be able to have on there, if you look at the Atlas of Living Australia and see what they can do with their environmental layers and so on, it will give you a really good idea of the sort of things that we're going to be able to do on the NBN Atlas. So this is only limited functionality on the Analyze section at the moment, but I'm just going to run you through a few things that it is possible to do. So when you get through to the Analyze, if you've clicked on from a species page or from a data set, it will already have populated it with whatever you've come through with. Alternatively, you can add to the map by clicking on the Add to Map at the top there, and species areas or layers. So I'm just going to add an area. So when you click on that, it will come up with all of the areas, the layers that we've got that it's possible to upload, and then you can either add a set of layers, or you can search to see what layer that you want in there. So for now, if I just go for the English National Parks, you can select multiple if you want more than one, and then that will add those to the map. And then if you want to refine that even more, say we pick the Peak District, for example, then you can make it so that you create another area just from that, so it will only have that in it, and then you can rename it here if you want to Peak District, for example. And then it will come up at the top here as your layer. So we don't want the rest of the national parks at the moment, so we can just delete that layer from there, and then we can zoom to the layer that we want. So that will take you, so you're looking purely at the Peak District National Park there. And then say, for example, you wanted to find out what species were available there. You click on to add a species. In this case, we're just going to do add all species. And it will ask whether you want any spatially valid records. So the records are assessed, and if it looks like there is a record of an animal or something that you wouldn't expect to see in that area, it will have been highlighted as a spatially suspect record. So if you only want to look at the ones where you're quite confident that they're in the right area, then you choose between those. You can also do it for a specific species if you want, or use existing species lists, but I'm just going to find out what species are in there altogether, and then when you go through, you can choose your area or the current extent, so it would do it for all the map that's available there, or you can define a new area by selecting a layer, drawing a polygon, importing a shapefile, etc. So if we just go for the Peak District at the moment, then this should show you all of the grid squares within the Peak District National Park that have records for species occurrence in them. So the default again is to show the grid squares, but you can also, if you change it to points, it gives you greater ability to look at different things, colour things differently, and so on. So at the moment, that's just showing all species, so you could change this so it would show different species in different colours, for example, and you could just click on some of these if you only wanted certain species to show, so that you could refine it to what you really want to look at. You could also look at presence absence records, so going through here, so a current status, and that will just show you if there's been any surveys where they've determined that the species are absent from those areas. You can then just click that, and it will just show you those ones, hopefully, for which the squares have been checked, but there's no evidence of those species in there. And you can, most of the filters that were available in the interactive map are available through here as well. So you can, as I say, do it by decade, you can do it by data set, by data provider, and so on. And you can also get some quick links down here in this box. It will give you quick links for doing an area report, looking at the metadata, download species list, all of that sort of thing. So, for example, if you wanted to download a species list, if you wanted to see a list of the species that were in there rather than go through the large number that's on the map, you can just click on that and it will produce you a list of the species in the area. Again, this is just restricted to the Peak District, but you could change the extent if you wanted to show different things.
Jo, can I interrupt a minute? It's Karen here.
Yeah, sure.
To let you know, we've got a lot of questions and we have 15 minutes left of the webinar. So
I've just got 3 more very quick slides after this.
I'll leave you to finish up. Thanks.
So there you go, it's done it. So it then produces a species list, and then you can obviously download that and go through what you want. As I said, we will be adding habitat layers and so on. We don't have a huge amount of those in at the moment, but if I just show you very quickly one of them, this is in Scotland. So the buttons here will allow you to zoom to those particular layers. So as you can see, this one is the ancient woodland, and again, you'd be able to colour it by different parts of things that you want to see. So that's is a very quick run through the atlas. Just a couple of other things so you can see what else is going on and where to get more information. So from the home page, you'll be able to see there's Choose Atlas. We currently have in the UK the NBN Atlas, which covers the whole of the UK, Isle of Man and Channel Islands. We've also got specific portals for Scotland and Wales. So if I just click on the Welsh one, and on these, it's all done by the same data set. All the underlying information is the same, but on the Welsh one or the Scottish one, they are restricted to those records that are seen in Wales, and the home pages are more country specific, so they have more local information on there. And then the other thing to just show you very quickly is that the help pages, so there's lots of help pages here, FAQs, we're developing and uploading video tutorials as we go at the moment, more information on the licensing and various other things like APIs and how to analyze data. So there's a lot of information up there at the moment. And then the other, we are, as I say, this is very much in its infancy, so we are very much welcoming any feedback that you might have. Please go away and use the Atlas, have a look at it, let us know what you think, what's working, what's not working, any ideas that you might have for future functionality. And the email address is at the bottom there, or there's the phone through to the NBN office, and we'd be glad to take your comments. So that was everything that I had to get through. So questions, please.
Thank you very much, Jo. That was really informative. We have got quite a few questions. I'm going to get through as many of them as possible with Jo. So I have a question from Ben Deed, who has asked, how will open government license data be translated to the GBIF portal?
So with the Open Government License, because it is equivalent to the CC BY license, so the Creative Commons with attributes, when they go to GBIF, they will have that license rather than the OGL.
Thank you very much. Debbie Alston has asked, I have an account with the NBN Gateway. Do I need to create a new account with the NBN Atlas?
Unfortunately, yes, you do. The old gateway was kind of switched off and we weren't able to transfer those registrations over, but it should be a very quick and easy process to register on the Atlas.
Brilliant, thank you. Paul Smith has asked, as a consultant user, I consider it important to examine NBN records when carrying out surveys. If many or most records are CC by NC, would this not make it difficult to refer to them in a report?
Yeah, if you're going to use it for any sort of commercial practice, you would have to contact the data providers for where the licenses are CC by NC, and in some cases they will say yes, that's fine. You can use the data, and then you can quote it as though it was a CC by. In others, they may have more things that you need to go to, or you might need to go to them for the capture resolution. So if it's in a commercial report, then yes, you'd still have to go to the data provider to get that okay to use that data.
Brilliant, thank you. I hope I said this right. BD West has said, can we download data as a usable GIS format, or will this require extra permission?
We don't at the moment currently provide it in a shapefile, but we have got a QGIS application that's been developed by Rich Birkmeyer at the Field Studies Council. Let me just see. I'm not sure if it's here, but yeah, so that will enable you to use it in GIS, and I can definitely provide details of that if needed. I'm not sure it's on here, but it is available anyway.
Okay, that's great, thank you. Paula Lightfoot is asking, what proportion of the 215 meter records are available under the non-commercial license?
I don't have that to hand exactly. I don't know exactly. Although again, let me just check on the website. So we can see from the data sets how many of those data sets are on a CC by NC license. So 313 of about 800 data sets are on the NC license. I'm not sure exactly how many records that would mean at the moment, but you're probably looking at about 40 to 50%.
Okay, that's great, thank you. Neil Madden is asking, can we refer to CC by NC data in commercial reports? I think we've just had that question, haven't we?
Yes, we have, yeah.
So, but okay, Neil, your question has been answered. We've got an anonymous viewer here. Is it possible to refine species by protected species?
Yes, you can do it by using the sensitive species lists, and then you can just show the species that are on that list. Okay,
that's great. Jason Gillingham is asking, what is the definition of a responsive grid in this context?
It should just be that it will change as you zoom in. So it starts off with the 100K grids and then 10K, and then as you zoom in, it will go down to the 2 kilometer grids and the 1 kilometer grids. But what will happen that's different from the variable grids is that you will only see those 1 or 2 kilometer grids. Grid squares. It won't show the 10 kilometer grids around it. I can have another quick look, see if I can show that. But if you want to carry on with the questions, well, I see whether it works this time.
Okay, Joe Hamer is asking, is it possible to display records for more than one species on the map? Records
yes.
For otters, great crested newts and badgers for one location.
Yes, you would do that under the Analyze tab and just add the species under there.
Okay, brilliant. Rosie Jackson is asking, how much crossover is there between data on the Atlas and that shared via local record centres?
We have some of the data that local record centres have, but not all of it, and due to sort of confidentiality and commercial reasons. So quite often we will have a discovery data set on the Atlas, which will be shown at a lower resolution, and therefore you'll be able to see what data holdings those local record centres might have, but you'd have to go for them for the higher resolution information.
Okay, thank you. Paula Lightfoot is asking, are all data from the consultants portal on the NBN Atlas?
At the moment, they're not, no, but we will be working. We know there's some issues with the consultants portal that we haven't addressed yet, but that's because we want to integrate the consultants portal into the Atlas, and so we'll be working on that over the next few months and definitely getting those records onto the Atlas.
Okay, thank you. Jez Martin is asking, why use term uncertainty instead of more readily available or more readily understandable of resolution for data on maps?
A lot of what we've got on here at the moment has been directly brought over from the Atlas of Living Australia, and we're certainly going to be looking at making those names of things much more sort of common to what we're using in the UK. We had a very hard deadline in that we had to get the Atlas up and running by the 1st of April because the gateway was being switched off on the 31st of March. And so those are things that we are going to do and make it make it a lot more sort of UK friendly, if you like. But we'll definitely take any suggestions that there might be on what terminology would be better.
Thank you. Lee Bagnall is asking, the NC license clarification is welcomed for use of data in commercial reports. However, please can you confirm the data sets held by the Atlas? I'm wondering how this corresponds to data held by local biological record centres. I think we've actually gone over a little bit of that. But...
Yeah, so the data that's on the Atlas, the NBN obviously doesn't hold any data ourselves, so we get the data from various different providers. And as I said, with the local record centre, they won't have all of their information on the Atlas. They will have some of it, so there will be some overlap, but it's a way of you seeing what's there.
Okay. Simon Geary is asking, how well is the data verified for authenticity, particularly records from individual recorders not previously checked by other data providers?
So the way the verification works is that we rely on the data providers or on data collators to determine how the verification status of those records. So at the moment, anything that comes to us comes through a local record centre or a scheme and society or organisations such as that, and so they will give us an indication as to how much confidence they have in the data. We also get data through iRecord, which is obviously verified within the iRecord system, and we are going to be having a submitter citing on the Atlas, but that's mainly going to be just for the casual observer, and again that will almost certainly go through iRecord for verification. Another difference that's going to happen on the Atlas that we don't have at the moment is we're going to be showing verified and unverified data, but we're going to have it very clearly flagged as to whether it's verified or not. And then we're going to have probably about 5 categories of verification certainty, similar to what's on iRecord and with the BRC at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Jo. Nicola Wallbank, can individuals submit records to the Atlas?
Yeah, as I've just said, at the moment we are going to have a submitter citing where you can submit an individual record. You can submit a data set to the Atlas directly to us, but again we'd have to check on the verification status of that as well. So if an individual that was unknown to us submitted a data set, then we would put it up as unverified, and we'd probably want to have it verified in some way. Okay. But yes, you can submit them straight to us on the data@nbnatlas.org email address.
Thank you very much. I think we've only got time for a few more questions, but Chloe Griffiths is asking, can I define a polygon and save it somewhere so that I can always have it available for search?
Yes, you will be able to. Once you're logged in and registered, it's not working quite at the moment, but you will be able to save your own areas so that every time you go in, you just be able to pull up the area that you're interested in.
Great, thank you. Okay, somebody who's not provided their name are asking, are records coming through from EcoBat, the University of Exeter initiative, to Atlas?
I don't know offhand. We can have a look for it.
Quite a specific question.
So no, would be the answer there. Looking
okay.
for a data set that's got EcoBat in it is not coming up with any data sets.
All right. Talking about records, there's another one here from Agni Louisa. Are all records on iRecord on NBN Atlas?
Not all of them. It depends on the agreement that iRecord has with the individual people who submit records through iRecord. And also with iRecord, they don't come through to us until they've been verified. So we only have the verified, not the unverified ones. Okay.
Debbie Alston is asking, is there an intention to the NBN Atlas to replace the majority of the functionality of the Magic website?
Not specifically. We have been talking to Natural England and DEFRA about the Magic website, but I'm not sure at the moment what their plans are for that.
Okay. I think we have time for just one more question. Paula Lightfoot has asked, how are grid squares converted to points, centroid or southwest corner? And if looking at points, are there any indication of the original resolution?
Yeah, so they are centroids at the moment, depending on obviously the resolution will depend centroid of whether it's a 1 kilometre square, 10 kilometres square, 100 metres. And yeah, you can look on the record information on the record data set. It will give you the exact location. Well, unless it's been blurred, it will give you the location that's been provided to us for that record.
Okay. One more question, actually. Is there any way of searching for species based on applicable legislation?
Yes, again, if you go to the species lists, which the URL is on one of the slides that I've got, so that will be available to you. Then you go through those, and we have red lists, we have the wildlife and countryside acts and all of that sort of thing, and you can click on those and it will show you the species that are on those lists, and then you can display that on the map.
Okay. Joe, I think we're running out of time. We do have quite a few other questions here, which I will forward to you for your interest.
Okay.
Thank you ever so much for a really, really good webinar.
Thank you.
Informative. I'm going to take the screen over now, and I'm just going to let everyone know that's listening how to record this on their CPD.
Okay.
So, Joe, thank you very much.
No problem.
Okay, if you can bear with me one moment. Okay, to everyone that's still with us, to log this webinar into your CPD record, it will come up as a structured CPD, and the relevant competencies are information technology, which is IM2, and E4, publicly sharing research findings. To create this new entry on your CPD tool, you need to click on Create New Entry, fill in all the relevant information, and it would be activity as webinar attendance, type structured, put a description, you could put the title in for that, and then your competencies in the bottom area here. Thank you very much indeed for joining us for this webinar. There will be more webinars available in the future. Please do keep an eye on our website for any information. Thank you very much.